So, ladies and gentlemen, this person needs no introduction, but I'm still going to introduce you to him. His name is Ksanati, and he is a brilliant astrologer, also student of Sanjay Rath, correct?
Originally Vasant Lad, actually.
Vasant Lad, okay.
Yeah.
And okay. And then probably Sanjay Rath.
Yeah. And
okay.
And I also studied with Simon Chikoisky.
Hey, my main man.
Yeah. He was a close teacher of mine.
Oh, man. So, I remember last year, the last day of the Vedic Astrology Conference in Sedona, at literally around midnight to 1 a.m. And the 3 hours you, me, Togi, and this other gentleman spent in the middle of that open garden where you can see the starry night, you can see the constellation of Ardra, the Orion, and the stuff we were talking and the prediction we were making on each other. That was, I could say, that was probably the highlight and the best time that I had there. That particular one moment that just happened out of nowhere. You were walking, I was sitting with Togi having a cigar, and then the other gentleman came, and I gotta tell you, that was like amazing time with you there.
It was an amazing time for me, and I actually moved into a house with four small pillars on the front.
The prediction came true. Now you will see. You see what happens now that you moved into a house with pillars? It's going to strengthen your foundation with your life, profession, and it's going to pretty much have you rise. Cool. And we can pretty much see that too. So today you are pretty much bringing the same stuff we were talking that night, but today I really want to hear more details about, how you're going to show us about the Nakshatra Devatas and, how they're impacting our lives. And I'm sorry, I'm the only one who has this hair on my side. If, you were here in person, we would both be puffing on it. So take it on, man.
Thank you, Kapiel Ji. And, I appreciate our friendship and the time we had together in Sedona. And I'm looking forward to this collaboration together.
Wonderful time, man.
When we talk about nakshatras, we love them. And we know that they have such an influence over our chart and our karma. But the question, the deeper question or philosophical question arises is, well, where does that influence come from? Where is that influence primarily coming from? And in some of the research I've been doing, the primary influence come from the Nakshatra Devata. And the Nakshatra Devata of each nakshatra has specific lessons because, these gods have this supreme wisdom. Mm-hmm. And that us as human incarnations, we can strive for it, but we don't have that supreme wisdom.
Right.
But through their lessons and through the karmic experiences that we have through them, they're trying to teach us these lessons. They're trying to push the lessons that they've learned through their experiences.
Right.
We can go back to the mythology and scripture to look at that and see how those lessons are kind of incorporating themselves in their lives. So I have a few examples I'd like to discuss.
Perfect.
I think everyone is interested in Bharani Nakshatra. So let's just start with Bharani Nakshatra because the presiding deity over that is Lord Yama. So whenever Lord Yama is having this influence, and we also know the connection of Yoni and Venus, which is associated with Bharani Nakshatra, there's a lot of energies coming together. So what is the lesson of Bharani Nakshatra? What is the ultimate karma of Bharani Nakshatra? Well, I went back to the origin story of Lord Yama, and it is a quite beautiful and fascinating story. As we know, the sun and his original wife, the power of the sun was too strong for her. So she developed Chaya, the shadow version of herself,
right,
in order to take her place. And but Lord Yama was the child of the sun and his original wife.
Sanjana.
So Sanjana. So Chaya was the stepmother. And Chaya was said to be preferential to her children over Lord Yama and Lord Yama's sister. And so over time, the child version of Lord Yama got frustrated that Chaya always gave preference to the other children. So one day, Lord Yama was so frustrated and so irritable with the energy of his always being less priority than his siblings, he raised his foot to kick his mother. And when he raised his foot to kick his mother, he did not actually kick her, but he did raise his foot to kick her. And this actually caused a deep karmic curse to Lord Yama, because Chaya was a powerful devata herself. And so she then cursed Yama that all of these worms and all of this death would take form through his body. And it is also said at this time that Lord Yama had a moksha, or an awakening, because of this curse, because he became so closely connected to death. He began to understand death. He began to understand karma. He began to understand reincarnation. It is also said during this time that he did penance to Lord Shiva, which also developed him a deeper relationship with Lord Shiva. So this energy of Lord Yama kicking his mother, or the thought of kicking his stepmother, is deeply rooted within the karmic lesson of anyone who has a strong Bharani position. See, because a lot of time we think it's our actions that carry great consequences. But when you go back to the story of Lord Yama and Chaya, it wasn't actually the action that caused the consequence towards Lord Yama, but it was the thought.
The intention.
The intention. And there's a strong Venus Yoni influence to Bharani nakshatras too. And there can be a lot of desire. There can be a lot of temptation. There can be a lot of temptations and desires on this physical world. And that's why it's sometimes called the star of restraint. See, because had Lord Yama refrained from raising his foot, now eventually later he would go on this enlightenment process as a result of the curse. And when Sanjana returned back to the sun, immediately the son was told what had happened to Yama. And the son immediately said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened to you, my son. And you shall forever be the one who is the king and the god over the death world, or the king of the death realm." And it was actually said that he was the deva of death, or the judger of souls. And the reason that Lord Yama was given the ability to be the judger of souls is because he was very unbiased. He had a very fair and unbiased approach. So that is the direct kind of judge that you want to have. You don't want to have a judge that is biased or approached.
Right.
So a lot of people with Bharani nakshatra karma, they find themselves in situations where they're having thoughts or temptations that they know come with consequences. And if they act on those thoughts or consequences, there will be karmic repercussions, because Lord Yama is always looking down at you.
Right.
So because Lord Yama is always looking down at you, there's this sense that we're always being kind of self-analyzing. The most evolutionary Bharani energy is that we're kind of self-judging ourselves, so that we can be the highest moral and ethical potential that we can be. And it's called the star of restraint. Why? Because when we restrain our desires, it makes Lord Yama very happy. When we restrain our temptations, it makes Lord Yama very happy. When we choose a moral and ethical approach to something versus something that is sensory or physical in its desire, it makes Lord Yama very happy. And there's this deep development of morality and ethics for the higher evolution of the Bharani nakshatra. And then on the other side of it, intense karmic retribution, as I like to call it, for people who don't go to the evolutionary energy of Bharani nakshatra.
I hope he's not watching me and my wife.
Well, as long as she's your wife, it's fine.
Okay, good.
a lot of the
desires there.
Yeah. Lord Yama says that I feel that the desires with your wife are fine. Those fall within moral and ethical means. It's the desires that we have that are not out of the love that we have for our partner,
right,
or the love that we have for our wife, but just our base physical, sensual, sexual desires.
right.
And if we have that with someone with unconditionally love, who we're committed to through marriage, there's nothing more beautiful than that. But a lot of the karmic retribution of Lord Yama and Bharani Nakshatra takes place when we are unbalanced in that way, which means we're having sexual relations without love. We are committing adultery. We are committing infidelity. And usually with people with strong positions in this Bharani Nakshatra, when those things happen, there is karmic consequences for those things because of Lord Yama kind of looking down over them over that. And there is this power of Bharani Shakti, and this is a purification energy. So the combination of Bharani and Lord Yama, it wants to purify your soul so that it prepares you for moksha, so that it prepares you for death. But the only way to do that is kind of to restrain yourself from the material world, especially from all of the attachments that you have. It is said that for the most evolved Bharani Nakshatra native, that Lord Yama comes himself to greet you at your time of death and transport you to Svarga and Yamaloka, and then to Svarga on his water buffalo. But if you have a strong Bharani karma and you don't live a moral and ethical life, and you give in to all of your temptations, and you never try to practice any restraint in your life, then he'll send his Yamadutas. And the Yamadutas are his little angels that he will send to come escort you to Yamaloka, where you will be judged for all of your karmic actions. So again, a lot of karmic opportunities to either restrain ourselves and grow, or give into our weaknesses and pay for them, definitely show up between the connection of Bharani Nakshatra and Lord Yama being the presiding deity. So that's just the first example I wanted to share. I hope that was interesting.
Oh, no, that was interesting.
And if you do restrain yourself with strong Bharani Nakshatra, you should achieve romantic success. You should achieve material success if you can restrain these base desires. However, if you are constantly indulging in these base desires, you can't expect to be wealthy or have a happy marriage with Bharani Nakshatra having strong influence. You really need to have control over these sort of sensory temptations that we have.
This is why I see a lot of Bharani Nakshatra people going to fields of law and dealing with policies and justice. And even I've done horoscopes of people who are judges with prominent Bharani. And that's when I realized, oh, they're Yama. They're there to judge, you know, the defendant or whatever case that they're trying to work with.
Exactly. And who better to judge than the most fair of all devas?
Yeah. Yep.
He is a representation of fairness. And hopefully the judge and jury for every trial is fair, but it doesn't always turn out that way, does it?
No. This is not the other world. This is not the Svargaloka. This is like straight up Rahuloka. So
yeah. But ideally, that anyone, especially someone who's judging our karma and a lifetime of action and intention, there's a reason that Lord Yama was given that position. And I think those that have strong Bharani Nakshatra, they should develop this strong devotional relationship with Lord Yama. And one of the things that's very interesting about Lord Yama is he's also a representation of death. But because of the Venus Yoni influence, that kind of pulls you into the material world. So there's also an evolutionary aspect I see through Lord Yama and his evolution, that it tries to help teach people not to have afraid of death. not to understand the reincarnation process, because that's kind of the supreme wisdom that comes from Lord Yama. So, and part of what we understand about that is that when it comes time for us to go, we don't get to take anything with us. We don't get to take any material things with us, and we don't get to take any of our relationships with us.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Lord Yama that's sometimes why there's difficult romantic karma associated with Bharani Nakshatra. It's because, well, you can have a happy relationship, but ultimately you have to know that there can't be attachment there, or it could cause disruption as well.
Okay. Perfect.
So there's another couple examples I have. I'm curious which one would sound more interesting to you. Okay. Ashwini and the Ashwini twins, or Krittika and Agni Kartikeya?
I would love to know about Kartikeya.
Okay. Yeah. This is one of my favorites to understand from a Nakshatra Devata perspective. So Lord Krittika is ruled by, it's kind of co-ruled. It's co-ruled by Lord Agni and also Lord Kartikeya. And they have a very close relationship as well. But again, to understand the karma of Krittika, we have to go back to the origin story of Kartikeya. And there was this great demon, Tarakasura. And Tarakasura was the fiercest of demons. He had so much power that he had power in Svarga over the gods. And so there was this great demon, and he was consuming and destroying everything that he could see. Mm-hmm. And he had a big ego, obviously, as most demons seem to do. And he said to the gods, the only one that shall ever defeat me shall be the son of Lord Shiva. Because he had this egotistical, none of you that already exist can defeat me. Only the great Lord Son of Shiva can eventually defeat me. Now, this came from an ego, but actually what it turned into was a prophecy. And from this point on, see, Lord Shiva was always in deep meditation, so he couldn't be disturbed to procreate with Parvati. Now, any wife who wants to have children and their husband doesn't want to have children, that's going to be frustrating to the wife. That's important to remember on the backstory of this, is that Shiva did not want to have biological children with Parvati. And as you see, with all of the children that Shiva and Parvati had, none of them are truly biological in their nature. And this comes from this origin story of Krittika Nakshatra and Lord Kartikeya as well. So, so Lord Agni was said to be the only one who had the power to bear the Shukra of Shiva. That if anyone else tried to hold the Shukra of Shiva because of its power and everything, that it would completely destroy them. Almost like the power of the sun. And if it gets too close, if we get too close to it, we'll burn up from the heat.
Yeah.
So it's only the Lord of Fire, Lord Agni, which can contain the Shukra of Lord Shiva. So, so Agni goes over to Lord Shiva while he's meditating, and he throws his fire all over Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva gets disturbed out of his meditation, and he says, Lord Agni, what do you want? You've disturbed me from my meditation. He says, we need your seed. We need your seed, Lord Shiva. We need your seed because there's this great demon, and the only way to destroy the demon is if you have a son. And so Shiva says, okay, I get it. Here's my seed. I'm going back into meditation. So he gives Lord Agni the seed, and Shiva goes back into meditation. Now you can imagine this is all frustrating Parvati. She's sitting there. She says, I'm capable of having your child.
Exactly.
And, meanwhile,
let's go right now the bag. Come on, Shiva.
Meanwhile, Lord Agni's there holding on to the seed, and he still has to figure out what to do with it. So back on Earth, there's the Saptarishis. And these are the seven, and the Saptarishis were the seven greatest rishis on Earth at that time. They had the divine knowledge of a higher yuga at that time. And so we can think of them having supreme knowledge, even though they had taken physical form as human beings. And behind every great man is an even greater woman. And these 7 Saptarishis had 7 wives, and they were called the Krittikas. And these 7 Krittikas, because of the divine relationship between them and the Saptarishis, Lord Agni thought it fit that perhaps all of them could share the seed of Lord Shiva together. There's actually a small addendum in the scriptures which says that first Lord Agni tried to give the seed to his devotees, and they immediately vomited it back to Lord Agni. So even the devotees of Lord Agni could not even consume the seed of Shiva. So he thought that the wife of the Saptarishis, the Krittikas, would be the best position. And so he spread the seed equally. Well, first he said, would all of you like to become the father of the son, the mother of Lord Shiva's son? And there's some different discussions here, but only 6 of them agreed. And because Parvati wanted to be a part of this process as well. She's sitting there in heaven, and now she finds out that not only is she not going to have physical birth with her children, but that Lord Agni has shared her seed with 6 other women, the seed of her husband with 6 other women.
Okay.
So upon this story, they atop of the mountain, the womb of Lord Kartikeya begins to form. And they also call him Murugan because he has 6 heads.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has 6 biological mothers. And he said that he had to feed on the breast of all 6 breasts. And one of the most interesting things about this story as well is that he went from being a baby into a full-grown adult in probably what we would understand as a few months' time.
Wow.
So we can't imagine how quick that growth is, but because he had a prophecy behind him, and that prophecy was being carried out by the Devas, that it was all accelerated before the demon could destroy everything. But Parvati came down to earth to nourish Lord Murugan as well, and became the adopted 7th mother.
Okay.
So again, Parvati comes back into the story, the true wife of Lord Shiva, as being the adopted mother of Kartikeya. So as soon as Kartikeya becomes a teenager, he realizes that he's the fiercest warrior that has ever existed. And he realizes that as soon as he's ready, his destiny is to defeat this demon.
Wait, what age did he realize that? When he's a teenager, or a specific number?
I let me see if I have a specific number here.
I wonder if it's 14.
It was around it was around 13, 14 because
Okay, you know why I said that? Because the Pushkara Bhaga degree, not just Pushkara Navamsha, Pushkara Bhaga degree is in 14th degree of Krittika Nakshatra, which makes a person invincible.
Right.
And the one who had it was Bill Clinton.
Right. So he quickly, as a teenager, actually fulfilled his destiny, and he immediately went and destroyed the demon Taraka. And it wasn't even a battle. Basically, Taraka knew that his fate had come, and that he had his existence, and he was about to be destroyed. And so he was instantly slain by Lord Kartikeya. But Lord Kartikeya was capable of slaying anyone, but at the same time, the demon knew that it was his destiny, as he had prophesied many years before.
Right.
And so this story gets deeply into the karma of people who have Krittika Nakshatra. And I don't know if you have any Krittika positions, but my Jupiter's in Krittika Nakshatra.
Okay.
So I definitely have a strong in the fourth house. So definitely a strong Krittika position there. And the thing is a lot of times when we think about the story, we think about Agni, we think about Shiva, and we think about Kartikeya, the Saptarishis, the Kritikas, and we think about all of the devas associated with it. But one of the biggest parts of that story is the demon Taraka. And so actually people who are born with strong energy in Krittika Nakshatra, they have a choice of which they want to become. They can either become the demon Taraka or Lord Kartikeya.
Okay.
And this comes from both of them having a strong influence, as even though the Devata, the demon Asura, is also having a strong influence over the karma of the Krittika Nakshatra. And see, Krittika natives, they have these great prophecies to fulfill, right? On one side of it, you have Lord Kartikeya's prophecy, which is he was the only one who could slay this demon, and he had to be the son of Lord Shiva. And oh my gosh, how much work did it take to get there?
Right.
So people with strong energy in Krittika Nakshatra, I actually believe that they have very big shoes to fill. And this actually is connected to ancestral karma, because obviously Lord Kartikeya has ancestral karma with Lord Shiva. So people born with strong positions in Krittika Nakshatra, they have large ancestral shoes, which they have to fill. But always there is this prophecy. Always there is this greater aspect which is showing up to kind of pull us to our greatest potential. And that's because Lord Kartikeya, he had this prophecy in which he had to reach his full potential. And as soon as he had slain the demon, he was called Skanda, the Lord Chief of Lord Shiva's army.
I have like dominant Krittika in a divisional chart, not the birth chart, but
that's very powerful.
I wanted to know, how did your Jupiter Krittika played out in your life?
Yeah. So, being in the fourth house, which is the house of home, so there's a lot of association with my family. So my grandmother was a Supreme Court justice.
Okay.
Both my parents, lawyers and leaders of organizations. And my grandfather was also started his own, he was born in a very difficult position, but came to wealth through very hard work and everything. So when it came time for me to kind of experience some Krittika karma in my family, it's that my family has been working so hard to kind of, find balance here in the material world that I have to carry that on.
Okay. Any themes of like adoptions or fostering playing out?
Sure. My mother was adopted.
Okay, there you go. Fourth house.
It definitely shows that. And I actually have a strong connection with my biological grandfather.
Okay.
Which is very interesting.
And also, is it like your mom or someone in your home loves to put like extra butter or ghee or oil in everything that they want to eat?
Well, that's just me.
That's just you. Okay, that's you. Okay. And like, there's also this love for, with Kritika's love for like cooking with fire.
Exactly.
Like not like gas fire, like they want to do barbecue. They want to do like bonfire. They want to like, they love the cooking and cutting part with cooking out in nature, pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. And that could be associated with Lord Agni.
Mm-hmm.
The one interesting thing that I thought was an interesting karmic connection is the 6 heads of Krittika, Lord Murugan, and how Krittika is said to be indicated for Kamabhava. So it's supposed to help us, fulfill all of our dreams. But when Lord Kartikeya got the milk from one of his mothers, he just wanted the milk from the next mother. So one of the reasons why I say, you know, they have big shoes to fill and everything like that is because as soon as one of the heads, which is one of the dreams that you have, which is one of the aspects of your desires, is satisfied, well, then comes the next head.
Okay.
Until all 6 heads are satisfied. So usually there are many layers of desire and kama fulfillment which come up with Krittika Nakshatra as well. So, you know, they're so on the positive side, you know, there's Kartikeya, which was there to protect the world. So his desire was to kind of, and his dharma was to be the protector of the world. On the other hand, Lord Taraka's dharma was not that. It was quite opposing for that. It was for dominance and destruction. And so one thing that you do see with people who don't have a lot of evolution or haven't focused on growing in their relationship with Agni, Kartikeya, and Krittika Nakshatra, they kind of fall towards the demon Taraka, and they can have ego stuff. They can have a desire to dominate. They can have a desire to destroy. They can have a desire for power. And there's always these indications for power, prestige, and reputation, and the desire of all of those things for Krittika Nakshatra. But the question is, are you Lord Kartikeya, the person who steps into your prophecy and fulfills it selfly without ego, or someone who just uses that power to get whatever they want?
Right.
So I do find sometimes with Krittika people, they can really get whatever they want, but it's really best when they push that energy in a selfless direction towards trying to help the world and make the world a better place and everything like that.
Now, you want to see something beautiful. You talked about Kartikeya and that Rakshasa. You talked about protecting people. You talked about fighting for the right thing, but also one desire after the other, wanting to live that big, lavish life. Directly opposite to Krittika is Vishaka, where the Vishaka splits Indra and Indragni, where especially the split that you see, because Krittika is about cutting, Vishaka can give somebody, like for example, schizophrenia, mood swings, okay, like bipolar disorder, where one side is Indra, the other is this Rakshasa. On the Krittika side, one is Kartikeya, the other one is the demon, the Rakshasa.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how just by learning about one nakshatra, you can see the opposite working on the very other side.
Definitely. And when you get into that energy of Indra Deva and Vishaka Nakshatra, well, we think of the winds and the storms and the rains and all of these things.
Yeah.
And it's generally what puts out the fire.
Exactly. What puts out the fire. The directly opposite is the solution to the fire.
Yeah.
You know, so that's
Well, if the fire gets too strong, which we can think of as the ego, sometimes Krittika can be in the nice balance with that, and we know it's associated with the lower caste.
Right.
While the Krittika Nakshatra vibration, it's the Brahmin caste. So also directly opposite of the Brahmin caste nakshatra is the butcher caste nakshatra.
It's the butcher caste nakshatra. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
So I just have one more example that I'd like to share. This one has to do with the Ashwini nakshatra. And a lot of times Ashwini, it can go into a positive direction, or as you can see with all of these nakshatras, the devas are trying to teach us these lessons. The devas are trying to influence these karmas. Do we always get the message? No. Do we always learn and see the divine messages that the devas are trying to teach us? Hopefully, if we have strong sadhana and live a spiritual life, yes. But in generally, sometimes we miss the cues, and that's part of being a human being here on earth.
Right.
So as we get into Ashwini Nakshatra, the Devas, the Ashwini Kumars. Now, the Ashwini Kumars were born as kind of demigods. They are the son of Saranya. Saranyaji was unable to bear the intensity. And so she turned herself, went far off and turned herself into the form of a horse. And when the sun found her, after she had taken the form of the horse, the sun had taken and made love to the horse human form of her. And this gave birth to the divine Ashwini twins. But at this point, Sanjana had been on Earth for some time, and she had developed some human-like qualities from her time on Earth. So not that the Ashwini twins weren't born with divinity. They were born with divinity, but they weren't born as Mahadevas. They weren't born as Ishtadevas. They were born as what we might call in the common language as the demigod. Oh. And which is a strong position and has a strong spiritual hierarchy, but it goes deep into their story that they were not content with that. As you go deeper into the story, the Ashwini twins, once they realized that they were demigods, they were obsessed with finding the Soma, or the Amritam, because that was the only way they could go from becoming demigods to Ishtadeva, celestial or supreme gods. In other words, they saw that they were halfway there, and they saw that, having a close relationship with the gods, hey, they're drinking the Soma there. Well, why can't I have a little bit of that? Mm-hmm. Let me just have a sip. But none of the Devas would let Ashwini have a sip. And actually, it was Lord Indra who was very serious about the Ashwini twins not becoming Devas. The Ashwini, Indra said, we cannot allow the Ashwini twins to become Devas because they are too human-like, and they have too much human-like desires, and they have too much human-like actions. And as we know, Lord Indra can be a little fierce, so he had an intense energy about this, and he said that anyone who is going to help the Ashwini twins become drinking the Soma, I will kill them immediately. So he set a death sentence out, like a mafia death sentence out, on anyone who is going to help the Ashwini twins become enlightened through the drinking of the Soma. But there was this great sage named Chaivana, and Chaivana's wife, Sukanya, said that if the Ashwini twins, who had this great power of healing, could heal their sick husband, that she would help them get the Soma.
Okay.
So immediately they take this great sage to the body of water. They engross him in this healing energy, and immediately he is healed. And so at this point, it was told to them in their seeking of enlightenment, it was a catch-22, because as soon as they healed the person, they didn't really get the information they were seeking. All that the wife and the sage told them is that you're going in the right direction, and that the only way for you to become completely enlightened is to drink the Soma. But they actually didn't tell them where it was or how to get it or how to do it or anything. So it just kept them searching longer and longer. And so they journeyed for a very long time, trying to find someone who was going to perform this traditional Soma ceremony for them, and take the risk of getting their head cut off by Lord Indra. So they finally find someone, not a priest, but the son of a priest who learned from his father. And they convinced this great son of a priest that if he is willing to, perform the Soma ceremony for them, that they'll make a second head for him and repair it as soon as the first one is destroyed. So, the Ashwini twins, they have this magical, creative, medical ability. So what they do is they create a fake head. And then they take the real head off of the priest, and they put it in a sterile medical situation so it can maintain, and connect the fake head to the body of the priest's son. Then the priest's son performs the ceremony, and the Ashwini twins achieve their ultimate realization of complete moksha realization and mahasamadhi. But what's an important element is how much deception it took in order for them to get to that place.
To get to that, yeah.
It's a big element in the karmic element. They did get what they want, and as soon as the head was cut off by Lord Indra, they did in fact repair the head and the priest was fine. So they did stay true to their commitment. And obviously Lord Indra said, it's out of my hands now. You can't change a deva back once it becomes a deva.
Okay.
So this energy of them kind of not, the gods not originally wanting them to become the greatest realization of devas, but then they were not satisfied until they, at all costs, that they drank the soma.
Okay.
And we know Ashwini is ruled by Ketu, and Ketu has a similar energy, which is associated with this desire for moksha and ultimate realization and mahasamadhi. And so a lot of that symbolization can be seen there as in a higher evolution with Ashwini karma, wanting to achieve a state of pure divinity. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In other words, the desire that the Ashwini twins had, there's nothing wrong with that desire. But the gods did try to make it on hard as them as possible.
I mean, and look at the story, like Ketu's a headless graha. And they dealt in the very end, taking the head off, putting the head back on. So exactly. You see how that played out. Yeah.
100%, 100%. And so there is this desire for moksha associated with Ashwini karma. But on a deeper level, no matter what kind of great position of power that you were born into with Ashwini karma, and we know this is in an Aries sign as well, that you'll desire for a higher position of power.
Yes.
And there are certain people with strong positions in Ashwini that choose power over healing.
That is so true. I was going to say that in my analysis, I've seen more businessmen and entrepreneurs than actually healers.
Yeah.
They want to be in this powerful position. It's not just about like herbs and healing. I mean, in real practical analysis, when you do it and when you go wrong, you're like, whoa, what's happening here? Then you realize that no, they actually like being business people. And of course, the whole chart becomes a yoga itself, all the grahas that contribute to that. But that's interesting what you just said.
100% agree with that. And just to even add on to that, they have the power of Shidra via Pani Shakti, which means they can quickly transform and change pretty much anything that they want to. And that gives them an incredible ability to heal if you want to heal. But if you want to change the mind of somebody else, if you want to change the heart of somebody else, and Ashwini is in a good position, you can change the mind, the thoughts of anybody else. And as we know, there are some great tyrants and people who committed mass genocide that had strong positions in Ashwini Nakshatra.
Exactly. And then here's the thing, like we think that Ashwin twins is about healers and they're doing the great things, but what you don't realize, it's a twin energy where you actually will see some Ashwini people become pranksters. They pull pranks on people, doing fake things on people to get attention and to gain power. Like on YouTube, you see so many prank videos. And I kind of see some of them who had their birth available, Ashwin was playing out. And then the other thing that I also noticed with what you said, they had to go far away to find somebody. With Ashwini people, especially with their ascendant nakshatra being Ashwini, I've always seen these people, they go far lands to find their spouse. And they had to go through many, many people, dating relationships before they found the real person who can fulfill that desire of unionship and relationship. So, because obviously opposite to Ashwini would be Chitra and Swati. And so Swati is about far wind, like wanting to just spread as far as possible. And it's also about herbs, Swati. So how the direct correlation plays on. And if you notice from Aries, the 7th house is the furthest point away. So that means they had to travel far to meet their spouse.
Yeah. 100%. That makes 100% sense. I guess the last thing I want to say is about the Ashwini and a strong Ashwini position is you're willing to do whatever it takes to get to your goal.
Yes.
To your desire, to get to what you want. Now, if your goal or direction is in a position of healing, and this is a very good position for an Ayurvedic practitioner,
yes.
an Ayurvedic doctor, if you do put your position, your energy in that direction, then you will accomplish that goal of being able to heal someone. I've even heard of people with strong Ashwini people being able to take someone who has said in Western medicine, oh, you have 6 months to live.
Yeah.
And then they work with a strong practitioner with a good position in Ashwini, and they live 10, 20 more years.
Vasant Lad. I mean, I hear his lectures and I see some of the things that he helped his client with, which was like impossible through Western medicine to accomplish that certain goal. Like one of the women couldn't get pregnant at all. The doctor said, nope, not going to get pregnant. There's no way you can get it. And I believe Vasant Lad told her to go to a certain tree, take the sap of the tree and make the oil of it, and kind of like take the oil within on a certain day of the nakshatra. And she gave birth. She couldn't believe it. And from that point onwards, I think that same lady started studying under her. I don't know exactly how it happened. I saw his video last year, but I know he's the Ashwin, miracle worker there.
100% Ashwini people in their highest evolution, they can put their hand on your head and heal your whole illness.
Yes. And here's the thing. I was like, this was a while back, 3-4 months ago, actually 5 months ago, where I was telling somebody doing the nakshatra reading for them that, you have this healing ability, even though you're an accountant, you are able to heal a person. And that's all I said. And I moved on. But then they replied back. They said, I've noticed that whenever my children are sick, and even if I just cook for them with my hands or touch them, they somehow feel better. I know it's the mother's touch and all that, but she said, my husband himself, when he's sick, he always asks me to just touch his forehead, just cook for something for him and feed, and they feel healed. And here's an accountant who has this ability that they don't even realize. They have the capacity miraculously, having their family members recover fast.
Right. And it's like, if that person truly understood the fullness of that message, that would be like receiving the lesson that the God is trying to teach us.
Right.
And just the difficult side of Ashwini Nakshatra in terms of getting anything you want. If you want power, if you want control, if you want to manipulate someone, then through the origin story and mythology of the Ashwini twin story, you also have the power to do that as well. Yeah. So I say with people in Ashwini that they have this healing potential, but they can either be a healer or a sorcerer. And even if they do choose a life of a business, they can either choose to give a certain percentage of their money to charity, have full morality and ethics within their business practice, business ethics being a key portion of it, which would make for a fine Ashwini position. But it's just the darkest side of Ashwini is this desire to kind of have power and control and influence the mind of others, which is kind of like a sorcery vibration, like a dark magic vibration of, I have this power of healing, but let me use it for selfish reasons.
Right. And then this is why you see great CEOs and people who come into a bad company and suddenly they turn the company around. Suddenly, miraculously, everything occurs. I don't know if Steve Jobs had his Mars in Ashwini, because I know his Sun Mars are in Libra Aries axis, but this is why this is why all this, actually I've seen even people who think they can't do business. I'm like, you have never sold anything in your life. Try selling something, just anything to anyone at your workplace. And
Steve Jobs does have Mars in Ashwini.
Okay. He came and he just completely turned things. He became this miracle. He was like, it was like a spiritual, Apple was literally like a spiritual organization. People looked at it as something higher and divine. It wasn't a corporation, it was a culture. it created. It was this, people feel better by having an Apple product back when he was, and as soon as he went down, now Apple is just like going down, 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 down.
And Mars is one of the best planets for Ashwini because it enters Mula Trikona position there.
Exactly. Mula Trikona position of that.
So you come into a place and you bring exactly what they need.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Yep. So, I mean, did you have more to give us with the Ashwini? Or?
I mean, with the Ashwini, that was probably what I wanted to focus on, but I also have some remedies to discuss for Ashwini, Bharani, Krittika, but I don't, whatever you want to talk about, but just with some remedy for Ashwini Nakshatra, that it's important that we honor the father Surya Deva, so that there is a direct relationship between Ashwini and Surya. So I suggest working with sun mantra and doing sun salutations, but also Ashwini karma. If we want to improve our karma, turn ourselves into from a sorcerer into a healer. Guess what? There's one really easy way to do that. Study one of the Vedic spiritual sciences, which includes Ayurveda, Jyotish, Yoga, and Vastu. Four of the primary ones that come to mind. If you feel you have Ashwini karma and you want to move it into a more healing direction, just study one of those Vedic sciences, and it should happen naturally. Ashwini has a strong Pitta influence to the person. So obviously sometimes they have to have a Pitta pacifying diet. If Ashwini is in a strong position in the 6th house or 8th house, they have to deal with certain Pitta type health issues, maybe blood, maybe skin, maybe liver. And but Ashwini, because of the path of healing, usually they'll find some interesting method, probably natural method, in order to heal themselves, and might want to become a healer themselves after that.
Yeah. And the two things that I've also seen as a remedial thing, one is to grow plants in their backyard. Not just herbs, just grow plants, a garden. And number two, very simple, go to a barn and just stand next to a horse. Spend time near horses. Even if you never cared for horses or liked horses, if you just stand near horses, maybe let's say once a month even, you will see how just being in that area, you will feel yourself kind of like rejuvenating, like the energy coming in them, like, a horsepower. So if they just stand next to a live, because that concept of dhatu mula jiva. So if they went to the jiva, the actual living, embodiment of Ashwini, they can get energy quickly. If they are depressed, if they're lethargic, because I've done these kind of remedies type precautions just in the last 6 months actually, and people have like, actually you were right. Within like the same day, they felt just energetic, like they were just ready to work like a horse.
Exactly. And I've even seen people with strong positions in Ashwini. They're horse drivers. They have horse stables. They're horse owners, because it just generally increases their quality of life to have good relationship.
I did a chart of a horse veterinarian, 3 planets in Ashwini. So I'm like, well, there you go. I don't need to say anything else for the reading. You're doing your thing,
Yeah. I really liked also how you mentioned the twin energy of Ashwini, and how like one side of it's Dharma, which is their power to heal, and then the other side of it is moksha, that they were so bent on finding their Amritam.
Right.
So I think just as a lifestyle remedy for people with Ashwini is to understand that yes, the ultimate goal might be moksha or mahasamadhi or whatever you're trying to achieve, but to be grateful for what you already have, and to, with determination, just try to fulfill your dharma and not always be so focused on reaching the destination, but a little bit more of an energy and just trying to enjoy the journey of it all.
Yeah. Beautiful. And what about Bharani?
For Bharani Nakshatra, some remedies that I would like to discuss. So it's important that we do ritual and puja directly to Sri Yama.
It's funny. I have, you know how I have these statues of Ketu here and all that? I have a statue of Yama downstairs.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, people are scared of Yama. The moment we got a Yama statue recommended by one of our close friends, man, it was just amazing, beautiful energy in the home.
I have a Yama statue. I make offerings to it every day.
Yes.
And I find that it pushes me to be my better self.
Yes. Yes. It's like the Yamas statues have brought like organization within the home. Because I was like, Yama in the home. Okay. Well, I'm like, no, I trust this person. And once I got it, I'm like, man, absolutely Yama all the way.
One of my favorite remedies for Bharani Nakshatra is that people with strong position there, they should study the law of karma.
Okay.
They should study reincarnation theory. And they should come to understand the law of karma and reincarnation theory and take faith and belief in that and not be skeptical or doubt it in any way. If you can take faith in reincarnation and karma, then all of your fear of death disappears, and maybe Lord Yama will come on his own on his water buffalo to come see you, if you're blessed enough. But if you're afraid of dying, he's just going to send his little angels. So it's important that we study reincarnation and karma so that we don't fear death at the time that it comes for time to us to pass.
Now, this concept that you said about Yama actually coming and taking you, is this only for Bharani people, or can anybody without this nakshatra desire to have that Yama come and take them?
It's definitely not just for Bharani Nakshatra natives, but every human being on this earth, because Lord Yama, we do all have to meet him in the process of our reincarnation. And it says in the ancient scriptures, if we live our life completely morally and ethically and commit no immoral or unethical deeds, which we leave unresolved, then Lord Yama comes.
So me having the humidor is fine, right?
Yeah, basically.
Humidors?
Humidor is fine. All you have to do is resolve your unsettled karma, and I believe your Lord Yama will come himself.
All right. Can't wait.
But one thing that is also a lifestyle improvement is we remember how Lord Yama reached his foot to kick his mother and didn't even kick his mother, but was cursed anyway. And so we have to understand what's called the butterfly effect. It's also called the domino effect. And that's not that every action has great consequences and repercussions. That should be obvious to every human being. But what's not so obvious is that every thought also has a butterfly effect. Every intention also has a butterfly effect. Also, every motivation also has a butterfly effect. So we have to understand karma and the butterfly effect of our thoughts. And that means if we're having a negative thought, especially something that is immoral and unethical, we should be doing whatever it takes to remove that thought from our minds through more sattvic type practices.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's one more thing which I like to say with Bharani Nakshatra, and this is actually a quote that my dad gave me when I was very young, and it has stuck with me, and it's deep within the Bharani Nakshatra karma through Lord Yama, is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Okay.
That means that sometimes our thoughts, we can have good intentions behind them, but when it plays out, it causes great suffering in other people's lives, even though we had good intentions. And even though we had good intentions and everything, we still have to pay for the karmic consequence of what happened, even though we had the best of intentions.
Right.
So just like we have to think of our thoughts and try to control our thoughts, that we have to understand that no matter what our intention is, we have to pay for the consequence of our action.
Okay, beautiful. And what about Krittika?
And for Krittika remedies, these are always really exciting.
Do barbecue.
What's that?
I said do a barbecue.
Definitely do a fire ceremony, puja to Lord Agni, any burning of firewood, any direct communion or connection with fire, such as the homa, this is highly indicated for remedy. One of the best remedies for Krittika is homa. Also direct honors and pujas Sri Kartikeya, Lord Murugan, and it's a purification energy. So we have to remove all of the ignorance from our life so we don't become like the demon Taraka. And and the thing is we saw that that kind of duality between Taraka and Kartikeya. So we do have big shoes to fill and a strong destiny to set into, and all of this ancestral karma which is brought with us, which we must fulfill, which is Krittika Nakshatra. But we can Lord Kartikeya, we can step into that prophecy without ego and fulfill our dharma, or we can fall to the demon Taraka. So it's always good to be humble with Krittika Nakshatra. The best remedy for Krittika Nakshatra is to be humble. Even though you might have some great destiny, even though you might have this really important thing that you feel that you have to fulfill or everything like that. Be calm about it. Be chill about it. Be humble about it. Don't let it feed your ego. I think that's a good remedy for Krittika Nakshatra because of the Rakasha effect of that.
Okay.
And the last thing I also want to say is the 6 heads. So that means that you fulfill one aspect of your karma, don't become complacent because you have 5 more hungry heads.
Okay.
And until you satisfy all 6 of your hungry heads and fulfill all of your aspects of karma, then you will still be hungry for more. So just because one head is filled, then you begin to say, I'm full, I'm full, I'm full. But there are still 5 more heads to feed. And it's in Aries, which is a very progressive energy. So that means as soon as you fill one head, instead of sitting on the couch, look for difficult position in the 4th house for that. But instead of sitting on the couch, what's the next head that I need to fill? I reached this level of my growth. What's the next level of my growth? What's my next level into my growth? Until karma is completely satisfied. And only then, I think, can we truly focus on moksha when we have such a strong Krittika position.
Okay.
And the last thing I wanted to mention is the Dādana Shakti power of Krittika Nakshatra. And so this is to utilizing our spiritual gift of purification. So this means that one of the best remedies, because the fire represents purification, but purification means all impurities have to be removed. So there is a strong remedial aspect, which is what are my impurities as a person? What are, and it's said to cut away, to destroy the impurities. So if you know what your impurities are and you have a strong Krittika Nakshatra position, you can actually cut it away pretty quickly. So let's say that there's a cigarette smoker and he's addicted to cigarettes. Well, if you decide to apply this power of Dādana Shakti, you can quit cigarettes right away if you want to. And it might take someone else a lot longer to quit cigarettes than it did the person with Krittika Nakshatra. So as soon as they're willing to purify, they do purify very quickly. So actually, if they drink alcohol and stuff like that, it moves through their body very quickly. And they're sensitive to all substances because constantly their body is trying to naturally purify itself. So they're kind of permanently in a detox process.
Okay.
So it's good for them to just have that in mind and think, okay, how can I detox myself even more? How can I purify myself even more?
Okay.
So
Okay. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, this last thing, is when you're studying planets in nakshatras, how are you applying, let's say, for example, you take Krittika, and let's say how would you judge that Krittika with Saturn being there versus Venus being there versus Mercury being there? How do you discern what that Krittika energy is bringing in a different planet?
So I have a little bit to share on that. So what were the 3 planets that you wanted to focus on?
Saturn, Mars, Mercury. Oh, I'm sorry, Saturn, let's say Saturn, Venus, Mercury.
Saturn, Venus, Mercury. So
Mercury.
Saturn, so I believe that Saturn can have a mixed and difficult karmic effect in Krittika Nakshatra. And as we know, on the Aries side of Krittika Nakshatra, that Saturn goes through a debilitation position.
Right.
So it does better on the Taurus side of the zodiac than it does on the Ashwini side, I mean, on the Aries side of the zodiac. I believe so again, first I break it down. Is it on the Aries side or is it on the Taurus side? Because on the Aries side, it seems to be more difficult.
Okay.
And then I think of how on a positive side, it can help a person be very determined and courageous because they have to deal with all of these adversities in their life, and it can make them someone determined. So that means if they fall back off the horse, they'll get back on the horse again. But in the Aries side, if it's on the Aries side, there's even some positives there, even though it's debilitated, because Saturn and Aries make someone very strong-willed. It creates a very strong will for an individual, and they will keep on trying and trying to obtain their goal. It doesn't matter what adversity is there, because Saturn shows that, okay, they know how to deal with adversity. They're gonna try.
This is why it's exalted at the 20th degree in the Navamsha.
Mm-hmm.
Shows through hardship, you really do come out as the victorious one.
Exactly. I always say the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, on the Taurus side of Saturn in Krittika, I think it's positive for, material prosperity and success, but they have to put in their dues. They have to put in their efforts. They have to put in their time and energy. So I do think there's some positive stuff that happens when the Shani is in Krittika, but we do have to talk about the difficult stuff too. And it can be extremely difficult position. They can struggle with such intense adversity that they may feel that adversity, that they can't overcome or defeat it. That actually they don't want to get back on the horse. Okay. This tends to happen more on the Aries side, and it shows that actually traumatic events can happen in their life that make it very hard to feel whole again after that because of a great amount of grief that they might cause in the person's life and things like that. So that can be very difficult. So they have to overcome these challenges or be defeated by them. So we can think of someone like a heroin addiction. If you're addicted to heroin, you can't just use a little bit of heroin. You have to either die from heroin or be sober from it for the rest of your life.
Right.
So it shows that either you overcome it or it could kill you, especially when Saturn is in Aries side of Krittika. Over certain periods of the life, especially when the person goes through their Saturn return or Sati Sati or Saturn Mahadasha, these are make or break periods for the life of the person, where either they overcome the adversity or they go into a really, really, really dark period. On Aries, they can be exhaustion and feel defeated from adversity. And they can even take a victimized role, which is woe is me, poor me, oh poor me, oh sad me, all of those type of vibrations. And on the Taurus side, they're vulnerable to hoarding, which means holding on to material things, obsessiveness, holding on to your addictions, attachments, and possessions. So looking at Saturn, I definitely see more difficult energy coming from Saturn in Krittika Nakshatra, but it's definitely more difficult on the Aries side than it is on the Taurus side. But at the same time, there's positives and negatives to both, I feel like.
Now, what about if Mercury was in that situation of Krittika?
Yeah. So you have to look at Mercury's relationship with the sun here. And how the Mercury's relationship with the sun is that sometimes it does really well and other times it can become very hot and combust. So on the Aries side, there can be some potential challenge, and it also does act a little more gracefully on the Taurus side.
Okay.
But I said gracefully, not better.
I see.
So on the positive side, Mercury in Krittika makes people very brilliant and have powerful expression. They are gifted writers, speakers, teachers. Mercury and Krittika people, they influence others with their speaking and their writing, so you can easily influence people. They reach high success in whatever fields they study. If it's on the Aries side, they have a deep impact on others with their expressions. And it's like, if they talk to you, they'll leave their imprint on you with what they say. You'll be thinking about what they said for the next 12 hours, this one little thing that they said that keeps sticking around in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the Taurus side, I feel it's more poetic. It's more graceful. There's more creative potential. And so they do well in art. They do well in art education and more creative fields there. There are some problems for Mercury and Krittika because, as we mentioned, Mercury can become combust. And so it can be brash, arrogant, and blunt, especially on the Aries side, because Mercury being in a Mars sign. That's not always a bad thing, to say it how it is.
Yeah.
But sometimes saying how it is, if you're a sensitive person, you could hurt their feelings by accident.
Right.
And it also tends to push your thoughts and opinions onto other people. So Mercury and Krittika, you're kind of like, I think this way, so you should think this way. So you got to be careful about that vibration. So it can rub someone the wrong way when you're listening to them, if they have Mercury and Krittika. And also the Mercury and Krittika people can get very angry, irritated, pissed off when people don't listen to them. So they can get very easily frustrated when they're not being listened to. Or they feel that they're being misunderstood. On Taurus, they, because Mercury being in a Taurus sign and with Krittika, there's very powerful energy associated with speech, but because of the Taurus vibration, they speak more slowly, and they tend to have more attachment. When Mercury is in Krittika on the Taurus side, I've seen them be very nostalgic, like attached to their memories about things. They can be attached to their pursuit of knowledge, which I call permanent student syndrome. And I think, you and I probably have that too.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. And they also have an affinity for technology, but they can be a little bit attached to technology. Maybe they spend too much time on the computer. So that's kind of how I feel that, and generally, it's really good for expressing yourself and having an impact and influence on other people. But sometimes the way that it comes out, certain people, it's hard for them to hear it that way.
Right. Okay. And what about if Venus was in Krittika?
When Venus is in Krittika, I don't think it's that comfortable because it is with Surya-Venus relationship. And then on the Aries side of Krittika, the Venus aspect can cause challenges. So Krittika makes a person very potent and virile with Venus in Krittika. That means you're going to have fertility. So if you're a man with Venus in Krittika, your ojas is strong. And if you're a woman with Venus in Krittika, your fertility should be strong. So I don't think people with strong positions here usually have problems with having kids.
Okay.
So it's a really good position for that because it increases testosterone and testosterone in the man's body and estrogen within the woman's body, which are both very good for the reproductive energies. But obviously that can make a person feel very sexual as well.
Yeah.
So they have to, be potent with that. But they also have an enthusiasm for romance. It creates kind of an enthusiasm for romance when I see the Venus in Krittika. It's good for creativity. It's good for art, music, and entertainment. And they do often achieve success in the material world. They do fill the material ancestral karmic shoes of their ancestors. On the Aries side of Venus in Krittika, the person can be very attractive, they can be magnetic, and they can gain great power and reputation. But when Venus is in Krittika on the Taurus side, then Venus becomes in its natural sign. So it begins to get more bala. And as it begets this more bala, it has an incredible potential to reach even higher positions of status in the world. This is where you could see famousness, great fame, great reputation, great recognition, and the financial associations that might come along with that. So this is a good position for celebrity or star status, as it's called, especially on the Taurus side. And it tends to do very well on the Taurus side in terms of kind of everything that stepping into those big shoes, but being able to do it in a comfortable way.
Like especially I see with Venus Krittika, investment bankers,
Yeah.
and like people in financial, like dealing with money.
Exactly. And that's the only, and most likely probably too, their parents and their grandparents had similar energy of trying to achieve material success in this world, whether they came from poverty or not.
Okay.
You know, so they're just kind of carrying on that ancestral karma too.
Right.
And some difficulties that mentioned, we talked about the positive side, but this could create an overly sensual or overly materialistic vibration. That's the dark side of the Venus in Krittika. They are vulnerable to be seduced into overindulgence of all sorts, whether drugs, alcohol, money, cars, whatever it is. These people are tempted in those directions. Especially on the Aries side, they can struggle with those energies. Venus in Krittika is, they do want to fill their wants and needs. So there's a lot of desire associated with it. And it can cause even aggressiveness or abusive behavior, I've noticed, when it's on the Aries side. So if you have Venus and Krittika on the Aries side, you can actually have outbursts of anger, outbursts of violence, outbursts of frustration. And hopefully that's not happening against your lover, but this could even show as a position for abuse. And they also gain, they can really explode. And there's a severe vulnerability, as mentioned, to get lost in hedonism. Hedonism means that your religion becomes pleasure.
Okay.
And so people with Venus and Krittika, they have to be careful of the Daitya Guru, Asurya Guru vibration here, and that seeing pleasure as the God, seeing pleasure as the aim, seeing pleasure as the ultimate destination. They can overemphasize pleasure, they can overemphasize romance, they can overemphasize sexuality. So they do have those things that are beneficial for them, but they have to keep them under control.
Okay.
And and also, as mentioned, they can overemphasize the material or financial aspect of life, especially if you see Venus and Krittika and Taurus. So that means that even though they could be, like, as you mentioned, CEO, bank investor, all of these vibrations, well, what are they not paying attention to in order to be able to do that? Maybe they're declining their family.
Right.
Maybe they're declining their health. Maybe they're declining their spirituality. So that's something to be careful about, I think, when Venus is in Krittika. Is like, yes, I have to achieve this material and financial balance in the world, but I can't sacrifice things that are more important for that.
Okay. Perfect. So, wow. Thank you so much. After a long time, I know we finally connected, but this was amazing.
Brother.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, this is going to be start of a long journey together. So thank you so much for coming on my channel.
Thank you, Kapiel Ji. It's such a blessing to
Absolutely.
have you as a friend and a
colleague. And
colleague.
hopefully we'll meet maybe this year, next year. Let's again hang out in the starry night again.
Yeah, let's just hang out and enjoy some time.
I know. That was lovely. That was just lovely. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Kapiel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.